Okay, it is a little bit after 8:30, about 8:30, 8:34. My Google is trying to catch up with me. It's 8:37. And I'm Professor Richard Wright. Welcome to week number 3 already of Introduction to Criminal Law. And tonight I'm going to, oh, by the way, speaking of some of you wonder about your assignments. Tonight I will be finishing up your week 1 assignments. I meant to finish them up yesterday, but there's been some funny stuff going on with Blackboard. They've been doing some updating and changes with it, and they're getting ready to do something really major coming up soon. But that's starting to fall, but there seems like they've jumped the gun and started doing something. So anyway, had some slow um, access to my papers to grade. So let's share my screen and let's come down here. As you can see, you have lectures every Thursday. Every Thursday was the first week, and every Tuesday now from this point on, which was last week, week 2, and we're week 3. Now, I always make this announcement. Week 3 is the midpoint. And for you guys, you're going to have a midterm exam. But I've been talking about that with the quiz practice quizzes that I've been encouraging you to keep utilizing. And that the quiz is going to cover weeks 1, 2, and 3. And when you're finished with that, you don't have to worry about that for the next quiz that comes in week 6. But weeks 1, 2, and 3. The other thing I want to say about this is that after week 4 is completed, which is next week, that I will not accept any assignments for weeks 1, 2, or 3. So, because we will be well into the second half. So what I do is, because as you know, your assignments are due on Sunday, because you just turned in week 2 assignments on Sunday a couple of days ago. So your week 3 assignments, which are this week, are due next Sunday. Now, the following Sunday, which starts you'll actually be done with week 4 and heading to week 5, then I will not accept any assignments from week 1, 2, or 3. So that would be the end of week 4. I'll show you again in a few minutes on the calendar so you can see it like right now. Let's do that. Okay, let's go to the course calendar. And here we are, here at the 25th. So therefore, the 24th was the start of week 3. And so when we get to the end of this week, that'll be the end of week 3. So not the 30th, but that following Sunday, which you will see. So everybody's real clear. That following Sunday is the 6th. Okay, because we'll be in week 5, but we will be finished with week 4. After that, you can't turn in week 1, 2, or 3. And even if you do turn them in, you're still going to lose points. All right, so let's go back to the week that we are now. So reading assignment is given here for yesterday. And then tonight, your initial post. What type of homicide is this? Okay, will be due then. and then your reply post is due Saturday. I had a student still to believe that they thought that the initial posts and reply posts were due um, the same way they were week one. And I explained that it was not that because that was a short week. If we had started classes on Monday, then they would have had it initial post due Tuesday. But because we didn't start till Wednesday, they didn't want initial posts due on Wednesday. They made initial posts and reply posts due for then. But since that time, you see that your initial post is due on Tuesday, and then your reply post is due on Saturday, the 29th. And then your quiz that I was talking about, and then your written assignment, spousal rape, and we're going to talk about that a little bit in detail. Okay, and again, reminding you that the course ends on the 18th. So on the 18th of September, not the 19th, not the 20th, the course ends on the 18th. And it actually says it, if you were to click on it, it says Introduction to Corrections, end of quarter. It ends 11:59 p.m. on the 18th. It's also in the announcements too, but it's also in the course calendar, so there's no confusion. So everybody's clear on my acceptance of the assignments from weeks 1 to 3. All right, so let's leave the course calendar. Let's shut this down. And let's go to the announcement. There it is there. See more of it. So last week, it was crimes against property. This week, crime against persons. And you had to read chapters 4, 5, and 6 of the text. I sent you the corresponding PowerPoints for studying. And then we're going to go over the activities of homicide, battery, domestic violence, sexual assault, and then you got key terms for practice, for classification, for homicide classification, and then the practice quiz that I was talking about that you've been having each week. Then your discussion assignment. What type of homicide is this? And then due date for that, again, repeating what I said earlier, Tuesday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard, and Saturday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard. And then the written assignment, spousal rape, and the quiz, which is time, and you know that by now. And you know about my motto because we covered that, all right, previously. All right, I think we covered that last week since I didn't cover it during week 1. So now let's go straight to crimes against persons. Before I get into the lecture content, let's again go over the discussion post. What type of homicide is this? So you're going to look at this interesting scenario with Rick and James, which I thought was cute when they put that together, because there was somebody actually named Rick James. You know who Rick James was, right? You ever heard of Rick James? You can type in the chat box, yes or no. He was an artist. Oh yeah, okay, all right. Yeah, Rick James and Tina Marie. Yeah, I saw, I had a chance to see Rick James in person at a concert, and then he made an appearance at one of my clients' nightclubs, and uh, they were getting ready to go hang out after the appearance at the nightclub on a Friday night. Place called the Taste Entertainment Center, and in the wood, and not in Woodlawn, in the oh, okay. Yeah, because Dave Chappelle imitates him. So, yeah, that's true. That's true. But yeah, I actually pressed a flash with Rick himself, and he was a druggie. And so Rick and Tina Marie, his girlfriend, um, matter of fact, at the concert, they had two uh, giant joints up on the stage. I mean, they were like one on each side of the stage. They weren't real, but they had the smoke and stuff going. It was crazy, you know. And then he did a song about marijuana, right? Did you know he did a song about marijuana? You know the name of his song that was about marijuana? You ever heard the song Mary Jane? Yeah, that's marijuana. He wasn't talking about a girl. He was talking about. Next time you listen to it, listen to the lyrics very carefully, and you'll see. And so, yeah, Rick loved to get high. I mean, funny guy. But anyway, they were getting ready to go out to party. I had to stop here at this because every time I get to this scenario, I always talk about this to my students, where the dudes were getting ready to go party, and they were getting ready to go with some heavy cocaine and stuff. And I said, "No, guys, I don't get high, I don't drink, and none of that." I said, "But let you guys go." So I said, "Here, Rick, take this, because you might need this." And what do you think? What do you think I handed him? What do you think I handed him? Any guesses? My business card. I was a criminal defense lawyer. Yep. I said, because you might need to call me. I said, because my cell phone number was on there. And so, because I did many calls from clients, but he didn't call. But that was the last time I saw him. So, but anyway, so I thought that was cute. Whoever put this together, they used Rick and James in this scenario. So you're going to go through the scenario, and then you're going to determine from the initial post, um, that you are the investigating officer, and what charges would you recommend against James? Would it be first degree murder, involuntary manslaughter, or voluntary manslaughter? And you're going to explain which is most applicable to this case and why others are not. Now, what a lot of students do whenever they do this is that they start to apply what's um, in their state, which is interesting because some states have variations of, and so what I'm going to talk about tonight is the general application of first degree murder, involuntary manslaughter, or voluntary manslaughter. And so you're going to explain which law is most applicable to this case and why the others are not. And if you want to, cite your state, you can do that. And I don't have any problem with that. Examine the other student's poster for your reply, contrast it with yours, and consider all three charges in this case and explain why you feel more strongly about one being charged as opposed to the other. And that's your thing. So you can get some tips to help you with writing discussion posts from your guides that for criminal justice for the course. That if you click on that, it opens it up and it'll tell you about for this course, and there it is right here. See, I'm on it. See, each of these are for different courses, but this one that I'm clicked on is for this course, and it deals with discussion posts, weekly assignments, Grammarly, and every particular thing that you need. And you can look at that video there as well. And then there's um, so you don't have to worry about this. If you click it next, you'll be in domestic violence. So everything you want to find is right there. Again, this is our commitment to help you guys to be successful in completing your assignments. Next, we come to your written assignment. One of the things I always point out to my students is that if you pay attention very carefully to each of these assignments, that they're not related, they're not tied in. The key is to follow what it says in the rubric. I spent a lot of time talking about that during week 1, but I constantly find students who haven't done that, and it's so important, and particularly with the APA aspects of it. So this particular one is a 2-part assignment, all right? And the first part involves the crimes that were committed, and you're going to take the scenario here, and then to complete this part of assignment, which is a minimum, come on people, a minimum of 2 pages. I haven't graded them yet, but I'm getting ready to tonight, and I submit that people are going to lose 3 points right off the bat for not having the correct number of pages. If you don't have citations, then you're going to lose more points. And so put those 3 points with the number of points that you'll see in the rubric in a minute, and you'll start off in the hole. But anyway, it's not counting the reference page, and it's not counting the cover page. So you're going to list the elements of the offense. Now, just because it says listed doesn't mean give me a list, boom, boom, boom. You're going to write about the elements of the offenses and explain how they've been met. Explain what type of crimes have been committed, and be sure to explain, as it says, why the initial responding officer mishandled the case the first time. And then notice, and I want you to listen to what I'm about to say. Don't just read what it says, but listen to what I'm about to say. It says, if you use your textbook or outside sources, include reference pages. There's no if in this course. I want you to use outside sources. I want you to lean less on your textbook, because I want your papers to contain information that you discovered from research. But I also want you to run your papers through Grammarly, which I shared with you the first week, so that you don't get hit with a Grammarly hit. And I've been very generous the first week with papers, but the second and third and weeks on, I will not be that generous. So, so I do want you to have outside sources. I do want you to do research. You have the Library and Learning Center. So again, including the reference page, APA citation, not a citation, but citations support your statements, and the formal requirements of references on, of course, the reference page. Be sure to cite the sources. Very, very, very important. Okay. So, and this is what I tell students. Do this part of the assignment, and don't start it on a page that you finish up with this. So this should be 2 full pages double spaced. Then you're going to do another page with the interview, and you'll consider what types of interview questions you'd ask the victim to determine what criminal law has been violated. And this is the scenario that you use. Explain how you will approach the interview with Jackie, and then what sensitive questions will you ask. And it should be a minimum of 1 page, double space. So that means that your questions shouldn't be like a half a page. And no, this assignment requires an explanation of the approach during the interview, and then what sensitive questions. And those questions should pertain, and you can research and take questions, but if you do, I will be able to tell when I run them through Grammarly. It'll pop up and tell me. If you don't give credit for it, you're going to get zapped for that. All right. So helping you with the assignments, again, I already showed you the guide, but make sure you use the online library APA toolkit to help you with APA, and then tutoring. And then if you use the writing lab, I've already said this before, then you need to remember it's a 24 to 48 hour turnaround time. So if your written assignment is due on Sunday, you would have to have your paper completed and turned in to the writing lab no later than, I'd say, day after tomorrow. Yeah, I'd say, well, actually, Friday is cutting it close. So that's why I said Thursday would be it if you need to do that. Okay. And then it must be a Word document, people. Anybody who gives me a PDF, I automatically put in a 0 because I can't, it says in here, save your assignments as a Microsoft Word document. It's in the instructions, okay? One student said, well, it's not in the rubric. I said, it doesn't have to be in the rubric. It's in the instructions. And it tells you, but you should be accustomed to that because all written assignments, we don't use PDFs for that. So let's look at the rubric for this. Due Sunday the 30th. Here's the rubric for a possible 40 points. So for 15 points, list the elements. And as I said before, that's not just a straight list. And it's going to be a 2-page document. So you'll get 15 points if you satisfy these requirements. You can lose 3 points if you don't. Now, let me show you down here. If you don't do APA, you can lose 5 points. Okay, if you put citations and no references, you're going to lose 5 points. If you put references and no citations, you're going to lose 5 points. And do not use Wikipedia. We already know that. We've had this discussion, but it's in the rubric as well. So that's why I said if you fall short of the 3-page limit and you cover all these other issues, which I doubt if you could have because 2 pages is what it takes to cover these adequately, then in this case, you could end up losing 3 points here and then 5 points here. So you've lost a total of 8 points out of possible 40, which means 32. It happens all the time. Never fail, but be careful with that. And then your 1-page minimum length for the rubric, okay? And then this part usually is always the same as is this. Okay, I do grade you on your writing, your paragraphs. Don't give me a paper that's one huge paragraph. You should be able to structure your writing in college as paragraph form. If you have trouble there, then you need to get a tutor to help you out with that. But the average paragraph should consist of 5 to 6 sentences. And there should be a topic sentence in there. And you know, most of you know what I'm talking about dealing with the grammatical aspects of it. And so you will be graded on that as well. Any questions about this? Okay. Seeing as how you're the only one that can ask them right now, I guess that's okay. All right. So anyway, that's the disadvantage of not being in the lecture because you can't ask the I had a student one time says, I tried to ask a question. I listened to the recording and I couldn't type anything in or nothing. I says, it's a recording. You can't. I've actually seen it. So, you know, then the student said, oh, my bad. I says, yeah, you're right. So anyway, back to the final part of your assignment for the week, and that's your quiz. And you already know how that works. You don't have any these little things here, these, you know, these little sticky things. You don't have them sticking all over the place. If you do, that's bad news. One person said to me, how do I know? I said, it'll catch up with you, trust me, because it's average a minute pretty much per question. And if you don't get it right, then you're going to be looking around for answers. No, you should know it. You should have studied your material. And then I do remind students, take the quiz, the last thing. Try to do that Sunday. But I can tell you already, I guarantee you, I haven't looked yet, but I bet there's somebody who's already taken the quiz. And their scores are not going to be as good because this is not a course that you can take the quiz more than once. There is one course that I teach that's 5.5, and that's Introduction to Corrections. When they put that from an 11-week to a 5.5, they did something that I'd never seen in any other courses. They gave the students 3 bites 3 times to take the quiz, but generally that's not the case. So anyway, so you know about that already because this is your midterm. All right. Just remember what I said. You haven't had one of these. You've had practice quizzes, but this is your midterm. That was what I said. So remember what I said earlier. The materials that I've given you from week 1, week 2, and tonight are what you're going to find on this quiz. That's it. My suggestion and reminder to students is go back, look at the practice quizzes from week 1 and week 2, as well as go over the practice quizzes tonight, and those little sessions that they give you where they give you little practice sessions and your PowerPoints. But I can tell you this, I guarantee you that there are some questions that are in the quiz because I already know what the quiz looks like, and if you do what I said with the practice quizzes, you will be well on your way to doing real well on the quiz. You won't have to worry about it. Then your live classroom key phrase, and I will give that to you later on. And there are some people who think they already know what it is, but good for them because I haven't decided yet what it will be. I'll decide in a little bit, but I'll let you know at the point that I tell you. All right. There are a few people who have, yeah, it usually it involves something that we've talked about. Uh, yeah, yeah. I think only one time I did something real way out of nothing that I talked about, and a lot of students were caught because what some students do, and I'm not kidding, they will listen to me talk about what the key phrase will be, and then they will type in the key phrase is the key phrase will be. I said, no, that's not it. And I've actually had it happen before. But if a student is listening to the lecture just to get the quiz points in, that's not good because there's some information that's going to help you that you'll miss. Like last week, knowing the difference between the property crimes that we deal with, and when you start to deal with those property crimes like burglary, theft, and robbery, especially burglary. A lot of people got caught on that one because Debbie was guilty of burglary. And I covered that during that lecture where if you reached in the window or any parts, that was burglary. People always thought of burglary as you got to go in all the way. Nope, not so, not so. We call it breaking the plane. That's what or as we said in law school, the curtilage, but I won't bore you with those details. You go to law school, you'll learn that. So we're going to talk about homicide, battery, domestic violence, sexual assault crimes. And then we're going to, go to these key terms for practice and then conclude with the quiz. All right. So let's talk about homicide. So in order for a crime to be a homicide, a person has to die. If a person does not die, it's not homicide. So it tells you right up front. Homicide is the killing of a person by another. Okay, and that puts it in homicide. That's the overall category is homicide, but then it breaks down into various crimes that we're going to talk about in homicide. So homicide can be either justifiable or either lawful, should I say, or unlawful. Appropriate use of deadly force to prevent great bodily harm or death between um, themselves or others, where police officers can use deadly force to prevent great bodily harm or death to others. Now, while I'm talking about it, I can't help but do this because it's in the news right now. In the area of Wisconsin, Kenosha, just across the border of Illinois, there was a young man who, the video, see, let me tell you something, people. Going into law enforcement, you really got to do your job right, because you're going to be on camera. As we used to say in the old days, you're on candid camera. You're going to be on camera because people have cameras on their phones. Almost everybody has one of these. And yep, and so it's not, a problem to try to control them. No, it means just do the job the right way, the way that we teach it. As I say, operate ethically, professionally, and from an educated standpoint, and you won't find yourself in that dilemma. But it says a police officer has the right to use deadly force to prevent bodily harm or death to themselves or other. Now, this young man did not die. So far. He is paralyzed, I'm told, and his attorney, who is the same attorney that George Floyd's family has, and he has already gone out and talked about the whole situation. And so Benjamin Crump from Texas, and Ben Crump is going to be like the new Johnny Cochran, or that I had a chance to rub elbows with, OJ's former attorney, and he's going to be out there. But anyway, here's the point. The police officers, just looking at the video that you saw, the individual wasn't fleeing. Number one, you can't shoot somebody because they're fleeing unless they're a danger to someone, or the police officers were in danger, based upon what you could see from the video. And people says, well, there's some stuff before that you didn't see. Forget all of that. You have to operate on the basis of the moment that you exercise the force. And based on the information given, it was inexcusable. Law enforcement officials have gone out. The Chicago Police Department chief, Mr. Brown, he was, and by the way, he's from Dallas, Texas. He was the chief of police down there before he came to Chicago, and other chiefs across the country and police officers have looked at it and says, this wasn't good. This was bad. Even the governor is saying that there need to be some more training. Bottom line is that the deadly force to prevent bodily harm must be when there is imminent death to themselves or bodily harm to themselves or others. You cannot do that. You cannot shoot somebody, especially in the back. That's a no-no. That's a no-no. Anyway, so if a person has to die in order for it to be a homicide, but if that person dies, it's going to fit into the category of one of these crimes from law enforcement, possibly. Let's see. I want to look at that chat again. Part of the problem is that officers need it so bad that they only require. Yeah, Well, see, that's the point that needs to be fixed, educated. Yeah. And so, yeah, but that's bad. That's bad because it sets law enforcement back in terms of relationships with the community. And this is not a racial thing. There are people protesting on of all ethnic groups, Caucasians as well as other minorities are protesting this thing here. And that's what's going to happen every time. Same thing happened with George Floyd and other instances across the country. Every time you hear of one, wrong is wrong no matter what color. Where are you, Amanda? What state are you in? Where are you? What state? You're in Texas. Oh, okay. So, uh, yeah, yeah. I think I talked to you the other day, didn't I? Yeah, yeah. I remember. Hope you got everything all squared away there. But yeah, it didn't. The storm has created havoc down in your area. Good. And so anyway, but my point being is that, okay, so down in Texas, so you know about the chief of police here, David Brown being the chief of police in Dallas, and uh, the situation that happened with that police officer down there, where young man was killed in his own apartment when she thought it was her apartment. You know what I'm talking about. Both of them, and so the key thing is, people, is that we have to change that paradigm. We have to. And that's my contribution as a professor, to spend a lot of time with that. And I have a lot of students. I have students all over the country. I have students in Minnesota that have reached out to me about, yep, yeah, we have to fix it. We're responsible, and so my commitment is to do my part. I'm obviously not anti-law enforcement, as you know about me. I was a police officer. I was a defense attorney. I've been a prosecutor. I've been on all sides of the spectrum. So I totally am not against it. But the point of the matter is that when you carry a gun and you're deputized and you have that weapon, you need to be trained, because you can be irresponsible with that weapon. So anyway, the killing has to be lawful depending upon the circumstances. The same thing can apply whether you're not a police officer. I've represented many of people where they use self-defense to protect individuals, and it resulted in killing another person to protect themselves or someone else. So in contrast, it says, when an upset boyfriend intentionally kills his girlfriend because he believes she's cheated on him, the killing is unlawful. And generally, in a situation like that, it's not defined as murder. It's usually uh, one of the involuntary or voluntary manslaughters in those situations. Um, I agree, they aren't against police. Corruption, and yep, yeah, and that's why I said my whole thing in a nutshell is to produce educated, ethical, and professional. So that's why, yep, yep. I think that if we have more of those kinds of law enforcement officers, it'll fix the issue. It'll fix the issue. We got to fix it. So anyway, first degree murder. Let's talk about that. All right. So first degree murder is, now notice what it is. It's based upon what we call malice and aforethought, which means that planning, you intend on doing it. You've done something to set it up. It's premeditated, and it causes the death of another human being, and it was planned to kill that person. That's general first degree murder, and Minnesota has it, and that's generally the way it is. And sometimes it's obvious based upon something that the individual does. If a person says to someone, as it says here in the example, uh, uh, I'm going to kill you, or you're going to die, and then the act becomes intentional based upon the actions that they do after that. As it says finally, that evidence of motive could also be uncovered to show that the killer intended to kill the victim. For example, if you send evidence like a email or a note or something, or make a phone call, those kind of things. Or if you, as they say, obviously intend to kill somebody to collect insurance money, to would help support the elements. My wife was telling me about a case in St. Louis that's taking place right now, where a family member was um, is being charged with first-degree murder for killing a family member over insurance money. Now, second-degree murder. Second-degree murder. Let me move you up there. Involves knowingly causing the death of another person. So the element of second-degree murder does not require premeditation or one's mindset at the time of the act, but they include the intentional killing of another human being by another. That's why that example of the boy killing his girlfriend in the heat of passion might be considered as second-degree murder. Now, in some jurisdictions, there's only there's murder, and then there's voluntary manslaughter. And second-degree murder is called voluntary manslaughter in some jurisdictions. Okay. And they give a scenario in here that would be, it then points out a heat of passion killing. So that would also, in my jurisdiction, be called involuntary manslaughter, where it's difficult to lessen the severity of murder under this concept. If Bob came home and found his wife in bed with Jim, but then hunted him down the next day and killed him, that's different. But if he does it like simultaneously and kills them both, then we might have a second-degree murder or voluntary manslaughter case here. Okay. And then special circumstances. Um, these are cases where you look at the whole situation. It talks about, for example, in Virginia, um, applying the death penalty to first-degree murder cases. Now, and this is, again, assuming that the jurisdiction has that. Um, future dangerousness, the probability that the defendant would commit criminal acts would constitute a continuing threat and is vile. The action that they did was wanton. They tortured someone, just totally lost their mind, so to speak, in terms of committing the offense. And if neither of these factors are present in the state of Virginia, then first-degree murder cases occur. Then the defendant is sentenced to life and not to death. But in these kind of situations, these are death penalty cases if they have death penalty in the jurisdiction. Second-degree homicide has one element that distinguishes from first degree, is that in the second degree, you're knowingly and not premeditated. This difference created an element for second degree murder with less malicious. Two common circumstances that make up the element of knowing in second degree murder are what we call adequate provocation. This occurs when circumstances exist that deprive a reasonable person of self-control, such as Bob come home and find Jim in bed with his wife. Bob shoots and kills Jim. Bob would likely argue that he was provoked in this case and would want to go for second degree. Or as we call it, involuntary manslaughter in our jurisdiction. Coercion death was because the actor was forced to do it. For example, if Jack is taken hostage and the hostage taker has a gun to his head, and the hostage taker tells Jack, shoot Bob or I'll kill you myself. Under circumstances, Jack shoots Bob, then it could be argued that he did out of necessity. So these are affirmative defenses that are brought out by the defense. Okay, you'll run across these very rarely. Let's involuntary manslaughter, and then we're done with homicides. Pretty much I've talked about it, where usually it's you either do it with utter disregard or utter indifference. And usually we start talking about those kind of situations where a person is inebriated or high on something, and they commit a crime that results in the death of an individual. And their actions are that they didn't have control. So the question is, what degree of involuntary manslaughter? And then here's an example that makes it really, really clear. It's 11:30 p.m. on a clear but cold January day. The streets are dry. Jim, a 23-year-old who's intoxicated, operating a vehicle on the road where it's 25 miles per hour. His girlfriend, Jane, sitting next to him, is intoxicated. He wants to impress her and increases the speed to 80 miles per hour. He goes through a stoplight at this high speed and collides with another vehicle occupied by a middle-aged person who are killed instantly. Did Jim demonstrate utter disregard for human life, or were his actions merely reckless? The question is pretty easy, I think, that he demonstrated utter disregard for human life. And so he wasn't thinking about the possible consequences of what it was. But what would mitigate his actions was the presence of the drugs or alcohol. Then the final thing, this one punch homicide, involuntary manslaughter occur in the context of battery cases, where we'll be talking about in a few minutes, where a person punches someone and then that person intentionally batters that person, but one punch can result in the death. And so you'll have to learn more about the one punch homicide by looking at these clips. I do recommend looking at them. I will tell you this, one punch homicide is something that can come about quite easily if you're a bigger person and a person smaller, or if you're professional and you use your hands, like karate or some kind of self-defense mechanism, or if you're a boxer, of course, then it can occur. All right, so any questions about homicide? So battery, let's talk about battery. Battery is simply, as it says here, unwillfully touching a person, intentional act injuring to another person without their consent. That's it. Now, if a battery takes place, it is generally a misdemeanor unless it is well, okay, because I was just getting ready to say something about that. Yeah, well, that's why what I was getting ready to say about that is that in some jurisdictions, the term battery is used interchangeably with assault, and I'm going to talk about that in just a few minutes. But I don't like that, because assault, here's an assault. An assault is this: me raising my hand up or threatening to touch you or hit you. When I make connections with you, then a battery. An assault can precede a battery. And what it does, it says in here in the general definition across the country, except in Texas and a few other jurisdictions that actually have that, that assault creates a reasonable belief that harm may occur, and it doesn't require physical contact. But of course, in your jurisdiction, they merge the two together, and assault and battery, which we, as professors or as law students, we would take issue with that. But the legislature in the jurisdiction decided, you know. So, what you say in Texas? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know you have to be taught, because I know people who go to law school in Texas. They learn about both. But the truth of the matter is that when you start practicing, it is all assault, which is kind of a mind-boggling thing. And so battery is when someone actually strikes someone. Okay, so, and it says here, explore the laws of your state to determine how the terms assault and battery are used. In this point here, and remember when you're taking these tests, don't think about Texas. Battery will be used as a legal term to describe when one person intentionally and without consent assaults another and causes injury. And what that really means is that the battery is an assault, but actually people use the term assault as a predecessor to battery. So that's it. And you can read that down here. And so I'm going to skip over this. I do want to point out mayhem is a serious type of bodily harm. And what it does is it involves in disfiguring someone, maybe pouring acid on them, or something that creates a very serious injury to the body, disfigures the body, or something along those lines. So here's an example of mayhem where you talk about what happened here, where Angela was at a party with her friend Drake, and they were both drunk. And Angela and Drake participated in a crazy ritual. And Angela consented. Drake slit her wrists and drank her blood. And then, to clearly show their commitment to this, Angela allowed Drake to chop off her pinky with a meat cleaver. Absent her right pinky, Angela eventually became lightheaded and was dropped off at a local hospital, where she told the emergency room what happened, and in turn, the doctors notified police. So, did Drake commit mayhem against Angela? Yes, 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 yes. Battery occurs between complete strangers, even among those who love each other. So we'll deal with domestic violence in a little bit, of which is a tough area for me. You heard my story already. So as we talk about domestic violence, there has to be a relationship between the parties of a domestic nature, where the persons either have a child, or either they are in a relationship together, and or they are common law marriage, just living together, or as we call shacking. um, and and common law marriage occurs in many jurisdictions now. And so anyway, because of this domestic situation, it elevates the crime to a higher level, because it's actually a power thing that takes place. And so it's physical violence, sexual assault. It can be emotional or in economic harm, where you're taking someone's money and not allowing them to have access to their money, and those kind of things. But the general elements in most states are written right here. Two adults, at least 18 years old, who live or have lived together or have a child in common. So those are the common things that we look for in the situation there. Domestic violence is one of the things that when I was in the academy that we as police officers learned that was one of the most dangerous calls that you have to answer. And the reason being is because when you go there and you're told it's domestic related, you have to be very careful watching not only the person who called, yep, because there's a lot of emotion. You'll have to watch the person who committed the offense, but you also have to watch the person who called. We remember an occasion that we answered a call one time, well, more than once, but I remember one that sticks out in my mind where we were at a house and um, the wife had called on the husband and we arrived. And when we arrived there, the place was in disarray and we had to wrestle him and, get him in cuffs and get him out. She attacked one of the officers, says, "That's my man. You're gonna hurt my man." Her man was the reason why she was bleeding and, she was injured. But trust me, it has happened. It has happened. Um, I remember one other occasion that we were in a situation where we answered the call and we were dealing with the guy and yep, we were dealing with the guy. And while we were dealing with him, the woman was sitting on the couch and she was crying, but she started, as we were doing, she started reaching into the couch, in between the cushions. And we were always taught to keep an eye on her. And one person was assigned to do that. And all of a sudden they said, "Get your hands out of put your hands up, lady. Your hands up, lady. Get up off the couch. Get up off the couch." And she started to move on. So they knocked her off the couch, reached down into the cushion. What was down there? Yep, must have been there. It was a gun. It was a gun. And so she was going to shoot us, you know. So those are the kinds of situations that you run across there. So you have to be, we hate those calls because police officers have been hurt in those situations and killed. Okay, so anyway, um, I'm going to skip over all of this. Final thing I want to talk about is sex assault crimes. Sexual assault crimes can doesn't require the actual um, intercourse that takes place, but includes the touching of a private area of a person. And I say of a person because it's man or woman now. Men most of the time are the ones, but it's man and woman, but it's done on purpose. And they're very sensitive crimes. And so sexual assault varies according to jurisdictions. Now, I'm not going to spend the time to go over these because of the fact that they vary according to jurisdictions and they have various degrees based upon the elements and the age of the individual and the type of thing that actually takes place. So you can, um, uh, yeah, I'm gonna tell you, yeah, that's interesting. You said that. Um, I didn't do a lot of sex cases because I couldn't do them. And before I say that, I'm going to talk about statutory rape, which is a strict liability offense, depending on, well, juvenile cannot consent to sex, no matter how much that person might look mature, no matter how they might lie, no matter how they have a false ID, a fake ID, it is a strict liability. It doesn't require intent. It just involves the fact that the incident took place and the person was underage. That's it, period. But what I was getting ready to say in regard to, as we conclude this, with regard to my one case that I did where the individual was charged with rape by a former girlfriend that he split up with, and he was going back to his wife. So she cried rape. And so he was actually prosecuted, and I was his defense lawyer. And it ended up going to trial. And, obviously, this wasn't a case where you had to deal with um, um, checking for sperm and all of that. Yeah, that had already happened because they had been together for years and years and years. And so anyway, when he decided to go back, and so anyway, I usually would try a case like that in front of a jury. And again, I didn't do rape cases, but I took this one on because I understood what was going on. Well, as it turned out, I tried it in front of a female judge, and she found my client not guilty easily. It was a 1-day trial. He was found not guilty. And at the end of the case, she rebuked the girl and said, "You should be ashamed of yourself, what you're doing, because that man didn't rape you. You had a motive for doing this, and that motive was to keep him from going back to his wife." And so he was found not guilty. So when you said that a few minutes ago about the false one, yeah. But one of the things I do want to say about rape cases, finally at the end, is that um, there is now what we call rape shield laws, and it's a very difficult scenario. And what rape shield laws were intended to do was encourage victims of crimes to come forth without having their prior sexual relationship or conducts being made evidence in court. So, but yes, so many false claims there. They're very hard to prove, and does ruin somebody's life by accusations. Unfortunately, that one that I told you about had a happy ending for him anyway. So, all right. So that's it. Yep, that's it for dealing with crimes against persons. So now let's talk about a little bit about setting you up for this so you can get ready for this test. Key terms. So you go to your flashcards and you can get that opened up so that it can begin to operate. Here it comes. Here we go. So you're going to go over these. There's 21 of them. So we'll just do 2. The unlawful and malicious depravity upon the body of a human being that results in disabling, disfiguring, or renders useless, or cuts or disables the tongue, or puts an eye out, or slits the nose, ear, or lip, another. What do we call that? Yeah, it is. Mayhem. Mayhem. That's what it is. Okay. The intentional touching or fondling of the victim's intimate parts by any part of the body of any. Yep. Very good. Or sexual contact, either one or the other. So you could go over these, and that will help you to prepare for the test. Then the next section, special circumstances. Now you have to pay close attention when we talked about those, but there's a few of them I think that are in my recollection. I think there's 2, might even be 3 in there. But anyway, here you go. Jane and Phil married for 10 years and have 2 children together. Jane also has a drinking problem. Jane came home drunk, argued with Phil. Phil threatened to leave Jane and take the children if she didn't get help. Enraged, she shot Phil and fled the house with the children. What would be the circumstances that would be likely claimed by her? future dangerousness. No. Nope. This one. Oh, I thought that was the right one. My bad. I thought it was this one because, wait a minute, let me reread this. See, this is how you can mess up just like I did. Which circumstance would apply in this case? And which one did you say? You said future dangerousness? Okay, let me go back. Jane came home drunk, argued with Phil, threatening to leave him if she didn't get help. Okay, I see why. I see what I did wrong. That's why you have to watch it. Watch this. I'm going to show you something. You also have to remember one other thing, too, is that these people are so tight with it. When I was in law school, we wouldn't have this problem. Or in court, I wouldn't have this problem because of the fact that I can change it around to any way I want to. Okay, which do you say? It couldn't be all of the above. And the reason why it couldn't be all of the above because they don't have that as a selection. Okay. Um, you think about adequate provocation? Oh, okay. That's the answer. That's the one I meant to pick. Adequate provocation because she was so upset with him threatening to leave and take the children. You see how that fits? Yeah, that's a better fit. All right. So now let's do this one. Mary and John have been married for 15 years. Oh, I know this one for sure. Yeah, she's really dangerous. Don't mess with her, right? Mary discovers that John has been having an affair the past year. They argue and sleep in separate beds at night. In the middle of the night, still very upset, she stabs John once with a knife while he's asleep. John survives, and Mary tells police she couldn't control herself. What would she try to say? Future dangerousness? Uh, I'll go with yours, but let's try this one. That one's wrong. Why? Because adequate provocation would likely be claimed in this case because she was so upset. Because she was so upset. So adequate provocation. The key thing that we want to recognize in these special circumstances is what would be in the mind of that person. So coercion wouldn't be. So adequate provocation would be it, not the one either that you were talking about. So I'm showing you why that is, they can all possibly fit, but the best one is adequate provocation because she was so upset. All right. See how you can get tricked very quickly. You have to think about the circumstances, think about the mind of the person because they're going to be raising this as a defense. Jim went for a hike in the wilderness and got lost. As night fell and the temperatures dropped below zero, Jim believed he was going to freeze. So he broke into a cabin. What special circumstances would he claim? Survival. You're right on. Okay. Because to save his life. So you begin to see with those special circumstances, you have to look at the perspective from the individual who commits the offense. Be careful because you can get tricked into looking at it from the other side. All right. So remember that when you see those special circumstances, situations, and you will see them. Okay. Let's complete this and go to Well, no, we got the homicide classifications. Okay, remember the homicide classifications that we talked about? Okay, remember now, we're not looking at it like Texas, okay? All right. All right. Frank has a long-standing hatred for Kim. He purchases a handgun. He hid in the bushes outside Kim's apartment. When Kim exited, he shot her. Okay, why did you say that? Because, yep, 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 that's it. That's it. That's it. The correct answer is because it was intentional. He laid premeditation. Perfect. Perfect. And see, that's the thing that you have to ask yourself. Why? John is a gang member who's involved in, yep, motive in an ongoing battle for drug sales turf. John tells his other gang members that he's going to kill Jose, a rival gang member. John leaves armed with a weapon and kills Jose. Okay, what do we have? How come? Yeah, but how is it demonstrated? You're right, but how is premeditation? Yep, what he said. His mouth. His mouth did it to him, and you'll see it described here. First degree murder is the correct answer because John's action displays his intent to commit the murder, and he intentionally carried it out. Do one last one. Jackson and two of his friends are hanging out on the top floor of a parking ramp. Jackson has a violent history, targets another man, Rick, and tells his friends, watch this, I'm going to kill that guy. Jackson punches Rick in the face, picks him up, and throws him over the ledge. Rick falls to his death. Yep, because every time you open your mouth, you dig a hole for you. Every time you do that, okay? So look for that. That's a key factor that makes it easier for you to come up with the right answer. So I'm trying to bring to your attention, not just know the answer, but know why you know the answer as well. And that'll help you a whole lot. Okay, students try to remember, but I said no, but analyze why based on the information. And then the final thing are the ones that you will actually see, some of these. So it's like I'm showing you part of the test and have been showing you part of the test since week 1. The intent to cause death with premeditation is considered what type of murder? Yeah, exactly. Yep. A father comes home to find his daughter's 17-year-old boyfriend, who he doesn't approve, about to have consensual intercourse with his 17-year-old daughter. Outraged, out of control, the father kills the boyfriend. Was the father likely to claim what? Excellent. Excellent. Yep, because of what it was. By the way, this person would be guilty of statutory rape anyway. He didn't have to kill him. He would, you know that, right? Do you know that he'd be guilty of statutory rape? Not in Texas? Why? I thought, what's the age for statutory rape in Texas? Oh, really? Leave it to Texas. Every other state I know it's 18 years or over. So, so anyway, those are the kinds of things that you look for. And so I am going to terminate tonight, and How about, yeah, I know a lot of the southern states are 17. That's because the young age of getting married too. But yeah, you're right about that. But up here, it's 18. At one point, they were talking about making it 16 or 17, but they decided not to do that. Um, so so what do you think? Yeah, what do you think about a key phrase for tonight?
Banana shoes.
Rick James.
Rick James.
What Rick James? That's funny. Uh, no, that's not it.
Chappelle.
What you have any other suggestions?
How about the adequate provocation? Get people thinking
Okay,
about that one more.
I gotta tell you something before I go to that. Okay, they just changed it to Illinois. Shows you how I've been since I've been out of practice. It's
Mhm.
17 now. So anyway, but anyway, so what do you think it is?
What do I think the key
Key
phrase?
free. Yeah, one last shot, and I'll
Well,
tell
I
you.
mean, it could be anything. I mean, first degree murder. I mean, homicide. It could be your springboard to success phrase again.
We're not doing that again.
Adversity. I honestly thought you were going to use that one again last week,
Nope.
but he's
No,
right.
I know a lot of people. Now, I try not to use the same one, but this week I will use one that I kind of, um, it relates to me, and my students know this about me, that I'm I'm one of the victims of this. So I'm smile when I say it now, but
The
I
domestic
am.
violence. Yeah.
Domestic violence. That's it. So, yep. So I'm going to shut your mic off because I already said it. That's what it is. And when they give me that, they'll get their points because I didn't want you to say it again or any of that because then students go looking, oh, I heard it on there from a student. Nah, that's it though. Okay. All right, Amanda, I'm going to say good night to you. Stay safe. And I got to do some, I'm going to at least finish your week one grading tonight and then call it an evening. So I'll see you next Tuesday at 8:30 Central Standard Time. And again, you guys stay safe down there with that bad weather that you got down there. So good night.